Today on the podcast, we want to talk about, of course, a hilarious story that recently happened with Claude, their legal team, AI, the drama. Essentially, Claude's lawyers were forced to apologize because Claude hallucinated in a legal citation. Obviously, a big no-no. We've seen other high-profile cases like this, but it's kind of funny when it happens to the actual company producing the AI model. We want to get into this and also talk a little bit about what this means for the overall industry. There's been some big news about some other legal AI tech this week, so we're getting into all of that. But Connor, I guess what to you is the funniest part of the story?
I'm with you, right? It's the fact that it happened to Anthropic is so glorious because Anthropic takes a huge hit from this, right? I mean, like the fact that it just feels like, and we love Anthropic. Claude is one of my favorite tools out there. But my gosh, what a shot in the foot this is. But also, first of all, just the facts of the case here, right? So this was also about the chat. It's a legal battle between a chatbot and music publishers, which is just makes it all the worse. But here's the point that is it makes it a little different. So we've all heard sort of these stories about like a lawyer making up cases and stuff like that. Just a point of fact here, that's actually not what happened here. So the case that was cited was real. It's just the citation was off. So that gives us a little more of an indication. Okay, a couple things. So first of all, the fact that it was the citation. So when somebody's fact checking this, what they clearly did not do was go and probably like, and I don't know how it works in law. I don't know if you like if it works like a hyperlink that you kind of click on the citation, you could check that if it also functions like a URL or something like that. But the other law firm, good on them for checking this thing out because now the headline is simply Anthropic's lawyer was forced to apologize after
Yeah.
Claude hallucinated a legal citation, which sounds, but again, that's very different from hallucinating a case. Now, again, maybe that feels like nitpicking, but the point here is that, Jaeden, you and I talk about this all the time. And I'm doing more and more with big law. And the thing is, like, what I see almost more than any other industry is law firms terrified of this. And they're terrified of this for good reason. First of all, because the billable hour is all about this is what it takes, like, a human to do this amount of work in an hour, and that's what the billable hour is all about. But legal firms, like law firms, also have clients that say, hey, you better be using generative AI and passing on the savings. They also have clients that say, you better not be using generative AI because what if it hallucinates? They also say it because also you're going to have our data and we want our data secure and all that sort of stuff. So I say all that because stories like this, while glorious to read, I have to be just totally honest, they're also, I worry that it kind of gives fuel to that fire of like, see, we can't use it because it hallucinates, when in fact it's not about hallucinations. And so, Jaeden, one of the places I wanted to steer this conversation between you and me is hallucinations are, in a lot of cases, the single biggest thing holding people back. Sometimes it's security, but I think data security is getting better and better. But hallucinations, we've heard sometimes with O3 ChatGPT's reasoning models may be trending up. It's hard to say.
Mhm.
So for you, how do you think about hallucinations? How do you think about advising people? What do you do? I know with AI box, like you have to deal with this stuff. It's your software company. You have to deal with this stuff all the time. How do you think about hallucinations, things like that?
Yeah. So I mean, I think the biggest point here is what Anthropic said. They said essentially their quote manual citation check didn't catch it. And so it went through. It's kind of embarrassing that it was like their opposition. So Universal Music Group saw it and like tells the judge like, hey, they're making crap up. And they're like, oh, whoops. Yeah, that was like, they apologized. They said it's quote an honest citation mistake and not a fabrication of authority. Oh my gosh, so embarrassing for sure for that law firm or for their lawyers. But either way, I think the in their apology is the answer, which is you actually need manual citation checks. Whoever did it obviously didn't do a good job. And I know people are like, well, what's the point, right? Like, why are we using AI to come up with stuff when we got to manually check the citations and see if it's real and blah, 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 blah. It's the exact same reason why you do it or why, as developers over at AI Box, we use a Claude code. It is by far the best code model. And the industry seems to agree. OpenAI is trying to buy all these code platforms to compete, but it's by far the best one. But when we get it to do something, I was talking to my CTO about this yesterday, and he said the biggest shift for him is he's no longer sitting there coding, doing the actual coding every day, which fries his brain. So back before we had Claude Code and a lot of these coding, and I promise this all relates to lawyers because it's going to be the same thing and for every other industry. He he pretty much said like the absolute max he could ever do is 8 hours a day of coding. His brain was completely fried. And that is much more than a lot of people. Some people can only do like serious coding, not kind of messing around with stuff. Most people can do like 4, maybe 6 hours for sitting down and cranking it out. It literally fries your brain. It's really complex stuff. You're figuring out math, you're figuring out all this complex stuff. And so he had like all these systems. He would do like 4 hours, then he would go like work out and hit his rower for like an hour, and then he could do like 4 more hours. Like, so he had this whole system to be able to get like 8 hours of coding in a day. And that was fantastic back in the day. Today, he said it's completely different. As of about, I think 3 months ago when Claude Code came out, he said no longer is he doing any coding pretty much. It's just he knows the code base for our product. He's instructing it. It's writing the code. He's checking it. He's seeing if there's errors. He's seeing if it can run. He goes and can manually fix stuff. But he says it doesn't fry his brain anymore because he's not doing the work. So he said, I mean, he's like, yeah, I can work for like 14 hours a day now, actually getting code done, way more code than before because it's writing it all. I'm just manually checking, seeing if there's any errors, fixing any bugs, and doing that. And like if it runs into an issue, coming up with creative solutions for it to try. But like I'm not having to try these creative solutions and manually write the code. This is the exact same thing for lawyers. So when we're like, why would we use a lawyer to write up this thing where you got to go manually check it? Because it's way faster to just manually check the citations, make sure its logic is sound, than to have to do everything from scratch and go do all the research from scratch. You're saving so much time, and not just time, but like literal brain power. If you have an absolute rock star lawyer, yes, they're going to have a team that helps gather information and do discovery and do like other things. But that rock star lawyer can save literal brain power to just further work on the actual case, work on the case and not in the case. And so I think that's for any industry, working on your business and not in your business, working on your code and not in your code. This is the big upgrade that I think AI has done and why it's worth some of these hallucinations that you got to manually check for.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this is why, when we talk about hallucinations, the reason that people are so afraid of hallucinations is because they're thinking about large language models as software. And so if your calculator was making mistakes, you'd be like, okay, I need a new calculator, right? Or if Excel kept glitching, you'd be like, okay, well, I got to reinstall it or something. That's not what these things are. These things don't act like software at all. They act completely and totally like humans. And how do you treat humans? You would never have, your young junior person, if they got the first 20 assignments completely right, it's not like then you all of a sudden have to stop checking them. And in the same way, they, if on assignment 5 on day 6 or whatever, something like that, your junior person got something wrong, you probably wouldn't fire them either. That's what AI is. It is something that behaves completely and totally like a human. So we can say all these things about like, okay, so how do we deal with hallucinations? And I think Jaeden's right? I mean, the one way to deal with hallucinations. Now, there's some, kind of tips and tricks and things like that. Like it's a much better process machine than it is like an actual knowledge machine. If I'm going to meet somebody and I need to know something about them, I make sure I check their Google bio, stuff like that, rather than just trusting the large language model. But most importantly, what would you do with a person? And what you do with a person is check their work. And so the value of this is obviously that we are moving from work producers to work curators, right? So when I'm talking to sort of like senior leadership, this is what I say. I'm like, you have to start thinking about recruiting differently, because what you are going to be having now is less about somebody who's going to do, spend 4 days doing research and everything like that, and more in terms of somebody doing deep research. So when we come back to hallucinations and everything else, we have to remember that hallucinations are low on this thing, but you cannot get lulled into a false sense of security, especially if you are in an organization or an industry that demands precision. Law, banking, insurance, all these things demand absolute precision. And that's what we're talking about here. So when we think about hallucinations, real simple way to think about it again, if it's a process, probably nothing's going to go wrong. Even if you're pulling from a document, like a RAG model, like in a custom GPT, like, hey, take this 90-page document, hallucinations will be very low. However, they can still be there. We have to keep checking our work.
Yep, 100%. And I wanted to say, like, this isn't the only case. Earlier this week in California, there was a judge that got mad at a couple law firms because they submitted quote unquote bogus AI generated research in court. In January this year, some Australian lawyers got busted for using ChatGPT, and it essentially made some faulty citations as well. Check your work. But what I will say is, even with some of these, like, it's kind of like embarrassing high profile things, especially when it's like court, right? Like, you don't ever want your lawyer to like mess something like that up, or AI to mess something up for like court, right? This is someone going to jail or paying a massive $1 billion fine. Like, this is serious consequences. That's why I think these ones get a lot of headline attention versus like something hallucinates in a email I send, it's like, not the end of the world, right? You can just correct it or send them a follow-up email. But in any case, these kind of, even the high profile ones, are not stopping the adoption or the innovation in AI. I think we got to just, we got to check in our work, like you said. But even just recently, we have Harvey AI, which is, people are saying that they're currently in talks to raise about $250 million at a $5 billion valuation.
Yeah.
I remember when they first launched in their beta and they were kind of bringing people on. Like, these companies are growing very fast. They're getting a lot of investment. And that's not because people have just hopes it will work someday. Like, these tools are very useful today. They are working today. And so as long as we're being thorough and checking to work, I think it's great. Speaking of being thorough, one of the most thorough courses on AI I have ever seen is Conor's AI mindset course. This is something that doesn't just show you like, well, here's a new AI tool, here's the 5 things to click on to do a thing, right? It's literally shifting your mindset and behavior and giving you frameworks for how to address AI. AI is changing every single day. There's no way you could ever keep up with every single tool, every single setting, every single thing that's possibly available in the world. But what you can do is shift your mindset and build frameworks that will help you in your specific job, in your specific career, know how to handle and approach AI. And this is exactly what Conor has built. So you have to check out his AI mindset course. It's absolutely incredible. There's a link in the description. But yeah, this thing is amazing. And if you have not, check it out. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. Make sure to leave us a rating and review. We literally love them. We read them all. They get us super hyped to keep making these podcasts for you. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you all in the next episode.